Hi everyone, welcome to Educon Community Java interview series. So this is basically the discussion for the 2 to 4 years of experience Java developers, and below 2 years also you can listen, and these things will be helpful after some 1 or 2 years. Like whenever you will be ready for interview, then you can just watch it and uh, get one revision session. Okay, so let's start. So first question is the from the basic Java. So first 5 to 6 questions are basic Java questions. So first of all is like what is Java? So Java is basically high level, object oriented, multi-threaded programming language developed by the Sun Microsystems and now owned by Oracle. I have discussed about the history of Java and features of Java in the Java Crash Course playlist. So you can watch there. So it is platform independent and meaning Java code can run on any device. So this is basically write once and run anywhere. Ora type of language Java. So Java can run on any device equipped with a Java virtual machine. So that's why Java is platform independent language, because the Java bytecode is platform independent. But like whenever that Java bytecode will find Java virtual machine in any kind of machines, there the Java bytecode can be executed. So Java virtual machine is platform dependent, but Java is means Java bytecode is platform independent. So what are the main features of Java? Platform independence, object oriented, robust and secure, multi-threaded, high performance, distributed. Next is JDK, JRE, and JVM, one of the fundamental area of Java. Okay, so JDK means Java Development Kit and a software development environment used for developing Java application. So it includes JRE, an interpreter or loader, that is Java, a compiler Java C, an archiver or which is jar, means jar file, documentation generator which is Javadoc, and other tools are there. So JDK is the whole collections of these things: JRE, interpreter loader, compiler, archiver, documentation generator. Okay, so if you will download and install JDK, then you need not to download, install JRE or JVM separately, because inside the JDK, JRE will be there, and inside the JRE, JVM will be there. So JRE is not other than Java Runtime Environment, and it provides the external libraries specifically and other libraries also, and Java virtual machines and other components to run the applications written in Java. So basically, whenever you will uh, load, means the class loaders basically load your Java bytecode to the Java virtual machine from the JRE. So only your Java bytecode is not sufficient for any um, proper applications, like which is production ready applications. So to run those applications properly, you need some external libraries. So external libraries will be in the JRE. Okay. And inside JRE, there will be different sector, which is JVM. So in this way, your bytecode will be inside JVM and your external libraries will be in the JRE. So in that way, that external libraries and the Java bytecode. So in between these two, there is one layer. So that is one of the reasons why Java is secure. Okay. Next is JVM. So this is basically an abstract machine that provides the runtime environment in which Java bytecode can be executed. Next is one of the important questions which can be asked in Java interviews, especially the difference between double equals operator and dot equals method. Okay. So double equals compares the references, means the memory addresses of two objects. Suppose you have created a obj1, okay, and obj2. The value are same. Suppose obj1 is a string object and it is suppose human, and obj2 also you have created another object and you have stored there uh, human. So the values are same, which is human, but you have created two objects, right? So those two objects will have different memory addresses. So that's why it will check that two objects memory address is same or not. So through that double equals operator, you will get that. If you will get the true response, means the same object, like same memory address for those objects. And if you will get the false response, then the memory addresses of those objects will be different. That's the funda thing. And next is the double equals method, which is basically a method and it compares the actual content. So basically, obj1 holds the human and obj2 also holds the human. So content is human, which is same for the both objects. So you will get true. Now, what is the difference between the final, finally, and finalize? So final basically a keyword to apply restrictions on classes, methods, and variables. So a final class can be cannot be inherited. A final method cannot be overridden, and final variable cannot be reassigned. So you cannot change that value. It will be constant. Okay. Next is finally. So finally is basically a block used in exception handling to execute important code such as closing the connections, streams, etc. So it always executes whether an exception is handled or not. Okay. And next is finalize. So basically this is a method used to perform cleanup processing just before an object is garbage collected. So before the garbage collection, the finalize method will be called, right? Next, some intermediate Java questions. Like what is the difference between the array list and linked list? So basically array list implements the dynamic array and it is faster for storing and accessing the data, but slower for inserting and deleting the data. So whenever you will insert a data, then first of all you need to swap the data to next space. Okay. So in that way, that inserting and deleting process became slower. But linked list, there is only reference type, like memory address referencing, right? So that's why through linked list, it's faster for inserting and deleting data, but slower for storing and accessing the data. So in your applications, when a random storing and accessing the data will be required, then array list will be the good option. And whenever like inserting and deleting data will be required more, in that case, you will use the linked list over the array list. Next is what's the difference between the hash map and hash table. So hash map allows one null key and multiple null values, and it is not synchronized. So as it is not synchronized, that's why it is not thread safe. And as it is not synchronized, it's faster, right? So always remember, like whenever anything is synchronized, anything is thread safe. And for the synchronization process, it will be slower. So as HashMap is not synchronized, so not thread safe, so that's why it's faster. But in the contrast, hash table doesn't allow any null key or value, and it is synchronized, making it thread safe. And as it is synchronized and thread safe, it is slower. Next is string, string builder, and string buffer. Okay, so string basically immutable and thread safe. String builder is mutable and not thread safe. and string buffer is mutable and thread safe. So whenever you need immutability, like when suppose you have stored some passwords or like some URLs like hosts and ports like that, you always need to store it like with the string data type, as string is immutable. Otherwise, suppose one will change the value for that string type, then it will be problematic, right? Like access issue will be there, connectivity issue will be there, like that things will be happened. So that's why when in your applications some immutability will be required, then you will always need to use the string. But whenever in applications mutability is required, you can use thread like string buffer or string builder. But you also need to check thread safety is required or not. So after the mutability, you need to check the thread safety. So string builder, string buffer both are mutable, but string builder is not thread safe, but string buffer is thread safe. Next is throw and throws. So throw basically used to explicit throw an exception, explicitly throw an exception within a method or block of code. And throws used in method signatures to declare that a method might throw one or more exceptions. So for throws, you already know that that method can throw one or more exceptions like that. That's why in the method signature itself, you will use the throws. But in case of throw, it used to explicitly throw an exception within a method or block of code, right? Next is checked exception versus unchecked exception. So checked exception means whenever it's checked in compile time, right? So any IO exception, SQL exception, like in the some Java database connectivity issue, that type of exception, then file not found exception. Okay, these type of exceptions are basically checked exceptions. So that exceptions will be checked at compile time, and those things are happened for systems, not programmers issue. Okay, but unchecked exceptions means checked at runtime. So that's our like some logically issue, some logical issues can be happened. So that's why in the runtime that exceptions are there. So programmers need to check those exceptions manually, and after that they need to resolve this, like null pointer exceptions, array index out of bound exceptions. Okay, like that. Some advanced Java questions. So first of all, sleep versus wait. So what is sleep? Sleep is a method in the thread class that pauses the current thread for a specified period, and it doesn't release the lock. Okay, so it will pause the current thread, and there will be some specific time for how much time it will pause the thread like that, and it doesn't release the lock. And wait, a method in the object class that causes the current thread to wait until the another thread invokes the notify or notify all method, and it releases the lock. So here current thread will wait until another thread will invoke the notify or notify all methods, and it releases the lock. But sleep doesn't release lock. Now synchronized versus reentrant lock. So synchronized and reentrant lock, these two things are very important topics, like two different important topics. So synchronized, what is synchronized? So synchronized is basically a keyword used to create synchronized blocks or methods. It is simple to use but less flexible. But reentrant lock is a class that provides more advanced feature like fairness, interruptible lock weights, and try lock. So reentrant lock is most advanced features in Java, and here interruptible lock weights. Like sometimes it will be locked, sometimes it will be wet in different conditions, different scenarios, and also try locks will be there. So we will discuss more about reentrant lock in future as well. So now next is why we will use the volatile and atomic variables. So volatile ensures the visibility of changes to variables across threads, but doesn't guarantee the atomicity. So through the volatile keyword, you can change time by time what variables are getting changed, what values are changed there, and that's why you will use their volatile keywords. But in use cases, you will not see much uh, use of these volatile keywords because of not atomicity guarantee. Okay, but atomic ensures both visibility and atomicity for the variables like atomic integer, atomic long. These types you can use there. So what is the difference between executor service and fork join pool? So executor service is basically a general purpose thread pool for executing tasks asynchronously. So in asynchronous programming, you will see you will see the usage of executor services. There you will not much see proper threads or like that because the asynchronous things are there. But fork join pool, this is a special kind of thread pool designed for parallel execution of tasks that can be broken down into smaller subtasks. So when you will do the programs for the microservice applications, so there you will need to use parallel execution like that. In suppose Zomato, time by time you will see the distance between the Zomato pickup boy or Zomato delivery boy and your home's address. Distance will be shorter time by time. So this is the real time processing. So there, like message queues you will be used like Kafka or like that, but there are parallel executions of tasks are also there, right? Like in the time by time, the distances are reduced. Okay. So when there will be some jam or traffic, it will hold the timing, like time constant will be there. So some parallel executions will be happened there. And you also can break down the tasks in separate things. Like you can pick up one task for time, second one for distance, third one for like conditions of your foods, like that in this way. So there you can see the fork join pool. So that is the specialized thread pool. Next is difference between the completable future and future. So future represents the result of the asynchronous computation. So in the asynchronous computation, you have used the executor service. But how about the future? Like how will be the result? You don't know what will be the result, but you can consider one future there. Like if you will read well, you will get good placements, right? So like that. That's a future thing. Okay. So it provides the methods to check if the computation is complete or to wait for its completion and to retrieve the result. So, so there will be some result through which you can check the asynchronous computations. What is the status? It's completed or not, or you need to hold it, or like that. But the completable future means implements the future and provides some additional methods to chain tasks, handle the exceptions, some combine multiple futures like that. So that chaining things, handling exceptions things, and combining multiple futures things, these types of methods will be additionally added by the completable future. So now Java 8 plus uh, features related questions. Like what are the new features introduced in Java 8? So detailed descriptions you can see in the code tab management channel. So there I have elaborately discussed about the Java 8 features, which are like lambda expressions, functional interfaces, stream API, default methods in interfaces, optional class, method references, date and time API. So those things I have elaborately explained there. You can see from code tab management. I will attach the link in the descriptions also. You can go there and watch those videos. So now what is the lambda expression? So a lambda expression is a concise way to represent an anonymous function, and what's the speciality of it? So you can allow, like it's allowed to you to pass the functionality as an argument to a method. So earlier you can pass the uh, variables or methods like that, but like variables only. But now from now the functionalities also you can pass through that lambda expression. What is a functional interface? The functional interface is basically an interface that contains only one abstract method, and those examples are like runnable, callable, comparator, like that. What is the stream API? So stream API is used to process the collections of objects in a functional style. So it supports the operations like filter, map, reduce, collect. So there are some ternary operations, okay, and middle type of operations. Those also I have explained properly. Now, what is the optional class? This is basically a container object that may or may not contain a non-null value, and it is used to avoid the null pointer exceptions. So whenever in our applications, when we will get to know like some null pointer exceptions can come, so we can use the optional class there to avoid it. So now some Java multi-threading related questions. So what is the difference between thread and runnable? So thread is basically a class which represents a thread of executions. Okay, so you can extend the thread class and overrides its run method. And runnable is specifically a reference like interface and which represents a task that can be executed by a thread. And you can implement the runnable interface and pass it to a thread object. So now what is the start and run method? So start is basically it starts the new thread and then it will call the run method. But run executes the present thread, it will not create any new thread. Okay. What is the difference between notify and notify all? So notify basically wakes up a single thread that is waiting for another object's monitor, and notify all means wakes up all the threads that are waiting for objects monitor. What is the difference between the cyclic barrier and countdown latch? So cyclic barrier allows a set of threads to wait for each other to reach a common barrier point. Okay. But what is countdown latch? Countdown latch allows one or more threads to wait until a set of operations being performed in other threads completes. So cyclic barrier means it will wait to reach a common barrier point. So that's why one thread will be wait for another thread. But in countdown latch, one or more threads will wait until a set of operations will be performed in other threads completes. So, like, what's the difference between the semaphore and mutex? So, semaphore basically a synchronization primitive that allows a specified number of threads to access a resource. So, semaphore, there will be a collections, and that is basically for accessing a resource. But that's why some synchronization process, and that's why some specified number of threads can access a resource. So mutex also synchronization primitive, but it allow only one thread to access the resource at a time. Next is Java collections questions. So hash set versus tree set. So hash set basically stores the elements in a hash table and doesn't maintain any order, but tree set stores the elements in a red black tree. So hash set in the hash table and tree set in the red black tree. So that's the difference between the storing part. But hash set doesn't maintain any order, but tree set maintains the elements in sorted order. Okay. So as you will use the red black tree there, so some sorting order will be maintained. The same way hash map and tree map. So hash map stores the key value pairs in a hash table and it doesn't maintain any order. But in case of tree map, it stores the key value pairs in a red black tree and it maintains the keys in sorted order. Next is comparable versus comparator. Both are interfaces, but comparable is like to define the natural ordering of objects. Comparator is custom ordering of objects. And comparable, their class itself implements the comparable interface, but comparator, it's a separate class will implements the comparator interface. Okay, those things are difference. So comparable comparator, both are the interface, but comparable defines the natural ordering process, like natural ordering of the objects, but comparator defines custom ordering objects. And comparable itself implements, like the class itself implements the comparable interface, but in case of comparator, a separate class implements the comparator interface. Next is iterator and list iterator. So iterator used to traverse the elements in a collection in a forward direction, but list iterator used to traverse the elements in a list in both forward and backward directions. Now fail first and fail safe iterators. So fail first throws the concurrent modification exceptions. So if the collection is modified while iterating, but fail safe doesn't throw any exceptions if the collection is modified during the iterating. So that's why if you like want to warn, like during the iteration, some warning messages will be needed. So in that case, you can use the fill first iterator. But when you need some smooth process, you need not to show any warning or something like that, then you can use the fill safe. Now, what is the difference between error and exceptions? So error represents the serious problems that a reasonable application shouldn't try to catch. Like out of memory error. Your array size is 4, you are storing fifth element. How it will be done? It's a serious logical issue, right? So that's the error. But exception means like some conditions that a reasonable applications might want to catch. Like I have exception, like SQL exception, like class not found exceptions, these things. So try catch and try with resource. So try catch basically used to handle the exceptions, and the finally block is used to close the resources. So try catch block will be there. Some exceptions came, but finally block will be executed always, though there will be some exceptions or not. It will not take care. Like it will not look into it. Like some exceptions is there or not. So finally block will be always executed. But with try with resources, it used to automatically close the resources that implemented the auto closable interface. So each block completed, your each try catch block completed when you will use the try with resource. And for each block, all the resources which you have used automatically will be closed. You need not to close the manually. Then class not found exceptions and no class def found error. So class not found exceptions is thrown when the JVM tries to load a class by its string name, and there will be some methods also, like class loader dot load class method is there, class loader dot system find name, like that one method is there, and also class dot uh, find file in find by name, something like that. Those methods are there. So whenever you will try to use the string name of that file, and it cannot find that class, then you can see that type of class not found exception. To resolve this, you need to check the class path properly. The you need to check that is present in any jar file or not. Like that, you need to check properly. But no class def found error thrown when the JVM tries to load a class, but the class definition was present at compile time but is missing in runtime. So in the class file itself, there are some issue. So you need to check there. So in XML type of things like that. So class not found exceptions I have faced many times during the Java database connectivity when I try to uh, connect the SQL database with the Java. So in that case, sometimes like in jar, that file was not present, something like that. So you need to just check that it's correct or not. And no class they found error is like suppose your class got overridden. Something. Suppose your file name is okay. So that's why it found in compile time. But when during the runtime some problem came, and that's why no class they found error. So like your file name is okay, but the content of the file is wrong. So that's the thing. So in that case, you will face that no class they found error or something like that. Now, what is the difference between the throw and throws? So throw is like used to explicitly throw an exceptions within a method or block of code, but throws used in method signature to declare that a method might throw one or more exceptions. What is the difference between the finally, and finalize? And these questions also I have discussed. These concurrency questions also I have discussed. Okay, so now from 41 now, Java design pattern type of questions, like what is the singleton design pattern? The singleton pattern ensures that a class has only one instance. Okay, so when in any applications you will need one instance, then you can use the single singleton design pattern. Okay, and it provides a global point of access to that instance. Next is what is the factory design pattern. So the factory pattern defines an interface for creating an object, but let's subclasses alter the type of objects that will be created. Next is buildlet design pattern. Don't worry, I will also explain these uh, questions properly in another playlists. Like there is a plan like where I will dedicatedly will make the videos from the design patterns also. Okay, like the solid principles I have made already in the code tab management. You can go there and watch the solid design principles, and then I will also make the design patterns related videos also in this channel or that code tab channel, code tab management channel, anyone I'll pick. Okay, so build a design pattern is like it separates the construction of complex object from its representation and allowing the same construction process to create various representations. Next is what is the observer design pattern. So the observer design pattern defines a one to many dependency between objects so that when one object changes state, all its dependents are notified and updated automatically. So in that case, you will use the observer when like some dependent type of things are there, like those things are correlated, like strong cohesion is there. Okay, strong dependency is there, like that. Like not strong cohesion, not like strong coupling is there, like that. You will need to use the observer design pattern. Okay, now what is the strategy design pattern? So that strategy design pattern defines a family of algorithms and encapsulates each one and makes them interchangeable. It allows the algorithm to vary independently from clients that use it. Now memory and management related questions like stack. What is stack? So stack is used for static memory allocation and stores the local variables and function calls. And heap used the dynamic memory allocations and stores the objects and the data structures. Next is minor garbage collections versus major garbage collections. So minor GC means cleans up the young generation space, and major GC means the cleans up the old generation space. What is the difference between the serial, parallel, and G1 garbage collectors? So serial uses the single thread for garbage collections. Parallel means parallel garbage collections will be there. So for parallel things, you need to use multiple threads. And G1 designed for applications with uh, large heaps and low latency requirements. What's the difference between the weak reference and uh, strong reference? Sorry, soft reference. So weak reference doesn't prevent the referenced object from being garbage collected, but soft reference means there will be some soft corner. So that's why it prevents the reference objects from being garbage collected until memory is low. So when your memory will be full, then it will not help. Like it will be some red alarming things. So in that time, weak reference will be there. It will prevent, like it will not prevent the referenced object from being garbage collected. What is the difference between the parmgen and metaspace? So basically, parmgen is a fixed size memory are used to store the class metadata. So basically, it was used in Java 7 or earlier. Um, so for storing the class metadata, some fixed size of memory were there. But for metaspace, like from Java 8 and later. So their dynamic memory area was used to store the class metadata. Now it's Java Spring framework questions. So like what is the component? So it's a basic generic stereotype for any Spring managed component. So it's a generic stereotype for any Spring managed component, and service annotations indicates that the class is a service component in a business layer. Um, and the repository indicates that the class is a uh, repository component in the data access layer. Next is the difference between the auto-add and resource. So auto-add used to inject the dependency by type, and resource means used to inject the dependencies by name. Now controller versus REST controller. So controller is an annotation to define the controller in Spring MVC, where your API controlling things are there. But in case of REST controller, is it's a combination of the controller and response body. And this is basically used to create the RESTful web services. Now request mapping and the get mapping. So request mapping is the general annotations, like general purpose annotations, that's basically used to map the uh, web requests with the particular handler methods. But in case of get mapping, this is a special kind of request mapping, and it's being used to map the get related requests. For post also you can see the post mapping. For put also you can see the put mapping, like that. Now what is the path variable and request param annotations? So path variable annotations is being used to extract the values from the URI path, but request param is used to extract the values from the query string, URI path and the query string. Okay. Next is get and load method in Hibernate. So get returns the actual object, and if the object will be not there, not exist, then null will be returned. But in case of load, it will return the proxy object, and it will throw exceptions if the object doesn't exist. Next is save and persist method in Hibernate. So save method returns the generated identifier and can be used outside of the transactions. But persist doesn't return the generated identifier and must be used within the transactions. What is the difference between the update and merge method in Hibernate? So update method is basically updates the object in the database and throws an exception if the object doesn't exist. Okay. And merge, so it merges the object within the um, database and returns a persistent object. Next is what is the difference between the first level and second level cache in Hibernate? So first level cache is like associated with the session and is enabled by default. But sessions like second level cache associated with the session factory and needs to be explicitly configured. Now, what is the difference between the Hibernate and JVA? So Hibernate is basically a ORM framework that implements the JPA specification, but JPA is the Java specification for the array, means ORM, that defines the set of interfaces and annotations. So JPA is basically a Java specification for that ORM framework, and it also defines set of interfaces and annotations. Next is what is service oriented architecture and what is microservices. So service oriented architecture means a design pattern where the services are provided to other components via communication protocol over a network. Microservices is architectural style that structures and applications as a collections of loosely coupled services. Their one service is not dependent on the another services. That's why they are loosely coupled. So if there will be some issue in one service, then other services will not be affected. Next is REST. So REST means the representational state transfer. So that's basically an architectural style that uses the standard HTTP methods and is lightweight, scalable, easy to use. But SOAP is simple object access protocol. So that is a protocol that uses XML for messaging and is uh, more rigid and complex. Okay, so detailing we will discuss more things in the Java crash course playlist, so you can watch those. Along with that, I have also discussed the Java 8 features, solid principles in the code type management. You can go there and watch those videos. So thanks for watching. Give likes, shares, and subscribes for giving some motivations. I will make more videos and discuss more things with you. Thanks everyone.